Oh, g'day everybody, and welcome to Rolling Conversations on what is such an exciting night. We've been waiting for this night for, what seems like forever, but it is opening ceremony night for the Tokyo Paralympics. And we say a very big welcome to everyone out there that's watching with us tonight on the Wheelchair Sports New South Wales ACT Facebook page. And we're hours away from the opening ceremony. And so we're thrilled tonight to have three special guests to do our Paralympics preview. So a very big welcome to Rolling Conversations to Kathryn, Periac, Sarah Stewart and David Krantz. Hi, everyone.
Howdy.
Hello, Mick. Thank you for having us.
Great to have you all on board and resplendent in your green and gold, Kathryn and Sarah.
Yes.
Before we start, I would just check in with you, Kathryn. Tell us a little bit about your outfit there.
Well, Mick, I'm wearing the 1988 blazer. There's the coat pocket, which was a truly outstanding piece of designer clothing. Whenever anyone complains about their uniforms, you can trot out this one, or the other crowd favourite was the 1992 Paralympic uniform, commonly referred to as the shower curtain. Oh, and underneath, okay, I've snuck in a little bit of 2012, London 2012, just to keep me warm because I'm in Canberra and it's freezing.
There you go. Well, you look great. Sarah, you've got some green and gold on there as well?
I do. I have on my gliders green and gold jacket and my gliders green and gold warm-up shirt, just for that added extra gold.
Very nice. Very
but
nice.
But also a little bit chilly here, so
Indeed. Well, it is so exciting. And David, as our head of sport, you're very welcome for your first appearance on Rolling Conversations as well. We will get stuck into talking about our athletes that obviously are much loved athletes from our membership that are over there and others as well. But before I do, I just wanted to ask both you, Kathryn and Sarah, as you've both been to, Kathryn, you've been to many Paralympics. I think you said 7 earlier in different roles. And Sarah, you've represented Australia at 3 Paralympic Games. How are the athletes feeling in your experience right now? You know, you're hours away from the opening ceremony, particularly, I guess, those first-time athletes who are making their debut. Sarah, I might start with you. Do you have a sense of how our athletes will be feeling in Tokyo just hours away from the Paralympic opening ceremony?
Yeah, I think no matter what, there'll be a lot of anticipation and just feeling really excited. It'll be a little bit different because of the COVID situation. So unless anything's changed, I'm pretty sure only our flag bearers are actually marching in the opening ceremony. So that will be quite different. There is something quite amazing about an opening ceremony and walking out into that full packed stadium for the first time. So it's a little bit sad they don't get that this time, but it'll be, I presume they'll be able to watch it in the village. Everyone will be there together experiencing that as an Australian team, and that'll be amazingly bonding. And I think everyone will be feeling really excited about the games now actually starting, particularly after this sort of extra year of preparing and getting ready for it and waiting for it to happen. And I'm really sure Japan will put on an amazing show, so it will really kick everybody off.
Yeah, it'd be great. And as you say, that extension, it's now 5 years since the last Paralympic Games in Rio, so fantastic. Now we've got, before I ask you the same question, Kathryn, we've got Dennis Devereaux watching from WA. So Dennis is the only person to have done air guitar on Rolling Conversations to date, unless tonight one of you guys decides to do a little bit of that as well. So up to you guys, but g'day, Dennis, and great to have you watching. Kathryn, same question for you. You've been to 7 Paralympics, as I mentioned earlier. What's the mood like in the village tonight from an Australian point of view?
As Sarah said, it will be utterly different from any other games. It's very unique with just the 2 people marching and no stadium crowd. Instead of literally 100-odd thousand people roaring as each team walks in and fireworks going off and the most amazing things happening and noise all around you, it will be a very, very different, it'll be a very different experience. Typically with opening ceremonies, people may not be aware, but you usually start getting ready 5, 6, 7, 8 hours before the actual opening ceremony starts. Yeah, right. At many games, a large part of the ceremony is spent waiting in a tunnel. Potentially, Sarah, you may have been in some tunnels
or even just
with me.
lined up outside the stadium in big long lines of athletes. Yeah.
In '96, we sat in a baseball stadium for hours, like it was daylight, and we sat there literally for hours and hours and hours. You can imagine the logistics of getting thousands of wheelchair users and people with other disabilities to the stadium in an orderly fashion. So there's a great sense of anticipation, particularly for the packed lunch or the packed dinner that you may be provided with, which is usually disgusting and unidentifiable. And then you sit around doing nothing and you lose a bit of anticipation. And then you start to inch forward. And you inch, you're lined up in your team formation. Somebody's trying to keep order and make sure that there's 4 abreast or 3 abreast or whatever it is, and nobody does anything crazy. And of course, Australians never do anything crazy. They would never think of standing on their heads or painting their faces in strange colours or doing rabbit ears on top of some important celebrity. Never.
No, of course not.
And so the staff pretend that we're doing the right thing and try and herd them back, but you don't. And you inch, you literally crawl forward. And then all of a sudden you come through some enormous archway out of a tunnel. And there is this roar, because the Australian team is always dearly loved. There are always so many fantastic Australian supporters in the crowd. And there's this immense, deafening roar. And I've got goosebumps now. I really do. My spine's gone all funny. It is indescribable and unforgettable for the athletes that are there. Personally, I am so stressed in the days leading into competition that for me, I usually now don't go to the opening ceremonies when I'm at a games. I just want to stay focused on the job at hand. And many, many athletes too are unable or choose not to participate in the ceremony, because the importance of competition is, there so much more depends on it nowadays than there used to in the good, like in '88. Nobody cared really, other than your own personal satisfaction of what you did. Your funding didn't depend upon it, and your sponsorships didn't depend upon it. But it is a very serious competitive aspect, of course, to the games now. It is ultimate in high performance and elite performance.
I must say, Kathryn, just the way you described the inch by inch and all the rest of it, I really felt that from you. So thank you for that beautiful description of what it feels like. Every Paralympic Games is special, but I wonder if I could just briefly ask each of you if you've got a favourite Paralympic Games, if they're one so far that really sticks out for you. David, what about you, mate? You've been watching Olympic and Paralympic sport, for a long time. Is there a Paralympic Games that sticks out for you?
Yeah, definitely. And I think you'll probably get the same answer from everyone here. But the 2000 Paralympic Games, I was really fortunate to go and watch a number of games. Our school took us to the games at the time. It was incredible to watch wheelchair rugby in person for the very first time. To see Louise Savage on the track was incredible. I've told this story countless times, but to get to see Louise in 2000 and now to get the opportunity to work alongside her, it's just such an exciting opportunity for me.
Very cool. And I noticed, Kathryn and Sarah, David just dropped in the fact that he was at school in 2000, just to let us know that. Thank you, David, for rubbing that in. Sarah, must be very difficult for you, being a multi-Paralympian, to choose. Have you got a favourite, or is that like, when people say it's choosing between their children?
It is like choosing between my children. I love them all for different reasons. 2004 was amazing because it was my first game, so my first real experience of it. Like David, I went to watch Sydney 2000, but to actually be an athlete at a games, it was incredible. And also the fact that we ended up medaling at that games, so the whole thing was just a ridiculously amazing experience to go through the whole games and be competing so well as a team. China in 2008 was just an incredibly well-run games, and so to go from 2004 to 2008, when it was just so professionally run, you felt the village was just so great to be in. And also there was more pickup of the games at that point as well. So we got more feedback from people and more interest along the way. So that was amazing. London 2012, then it was an incredible games. And it's really hard not to emphasize just how wonderful it was in a lot of the attitude they took to the games and the difference that made, because they treated it as the 2012 games and they discussed the Olympics and Paralympics together. There was just so much momentum behind it. They took a lot of what was out of Sydney 2000 and just took it to the next level. So it was amazing. And even just simple things like the parade for athletes for the Olympics was held with the Paralympians after the Olympics and Paralympics had finished. So it just made it a whole games thing. And they sort of sold it in that way. They got the public involved. So it was incredibly just amazing to have that much point. We had really packed crowds who knew about the sport, so were interested in cheering at the right times and getting really into it. And so it's something amazing about really playing to packed stadiums, which you only get at Paralympic Games, really like fully packed stadiums, and a little bit more now when we play other places. But at the games, you get really big stadiums packed with people who are really cheering for the teams. And maybe when we were playing GB, booing us a little bit quite loudly, it's that kind of thing. So it's a really incredible thing. And I think also for me, in terms of picking my favourite children, it's hard because we medalled at each games as well. So that whole team experience with everyone to actually achieve those results all together on those journeys together makes each games really wonderful.
I'm sure. Yeah. That's a great answer. We're going to get stuck into our preview in a second and really get into what people can look forward to in Tokyo. But briefly, before we do, Kathryn, a favourite Paralympic Games from you across the 7 that you've been a part of?
Same with Sarah. They're all incredibly special and incredibly different. For me, 1992, which was the Barcelona Paralympic Games, was the first time that people came, and it was the first time there was a huge effort put into organising the Paralympic Games, so the level of respect. 1988 was the first of the modern Paralympic Games, and there were definitely elements there. But because in 1984 the Games hadn't been held as one Games, USA refused to have the wheelchair athletes, so they were at Stoke Mandeville and so on. So 88 was the first time. And a country like Korea, where they had never seen disabled people in the street before. So that was hugely culturally changing for them. But 92 was the first of the special Paralympic Games in terms of that importance and value and appreciation and spectator applause, you know, ole, 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 on and on and on. That's the first time that they had that. And I mean, Barcelona is the most incredible place as well too. And I have a strong memory, Greg Smith, who was one of the great wheelchair racers. I was coaching him at the time, and he won a medal in the marathon, which was on the last day of competition. And we're in the Place de la Catalunya, which is a great big square with a huge fountain. And you've got Freddie Mercury and is it Sarah Brightman singing Barcelona? I don't know if you remember that song, blaring out, and Greg's just won a medal. So, yeah, very special.
Very cool. Thanks, Kathryn. And we say g'day to Mrs. Talbot. Yvonne watching on. So g'day, Mrs. T, and to Bob and to Brendan, and hope you guys are well and healthy. And I just think of how many young people have come through our Junior Wheelies environment with Mrs. T and others' help, and how many are now representing Australia on the biggest stage. You know, what an incredible legacy Mrs. Talbot has created with that Junior Wheelies program, and how many athletes owe their careers to having started in our Junior Wheelies space. So g'day, Mrs. T, and good luck with the tipping competition this weekend. I hope you tip terribly because you're just behind me. So there we go. Now let's get into the Paralympics preview, because that's what we're here to do. We're here to talk about athletes. We're here to talk about names. We're talking about who to watch. And isn't it exciting with, of course, as we said, the opening ceremony tonight. So I want to kick off with wheelchair rugby in the first instance. We want to hear, DK, if we could, just from you about, for those of us who are watching online, give us a sense of how you think the Steelers will go. and also a few of the names that might be familiar to people and a couple of the stories. Can you give us a sense of what we should look out for the wheelchair rugby, please, mate?
Yeah, absolutely. So the Steelers are currently ranked #1 in the world and are hoping to win their 3rd straight gold medal at this Paralympic Games. In actual fact, there isn't a competitor at the Games outside of the Australians that's ever tasted gold. So in terms of big game experience, we're really lucky to have that. From our team of 12, eight of that team are actually coming back from the previous Paralympic Games in 2016. So I guess in terms of who to watch out for, you can't talk wheelchair rugby without talking about the greatest player in the world or of all time, Riley Batt. He's a GIO New South Wales Gladiator, and he's in absolutely fantastic form. So Riley, he led the GIO New South Wales Gladiators to the national championships a couple of months ago, alongside our captain Andrew Edmondson, who'll also be there at the Paralympic Games. So they're the 2 names to watch. They'll be on the court a lot together, and without doubt, you'll see Riley top of the try scoring table out of all the countries, hopefully. Another name to watch is one of our other members, Richard Boris. So he's going to his first ever Paralympic Games. He's been a long-standing member of the GIO New South Wales Gladiators as well. And I guess he's been working really hard. This has always been his goal, to represent Australia. He was on the verge of making the team in 2016 and just missed out, and he's hoping to be a long-term member there. But the person I'm actually most excited about to watch, and I think everyone keep your eyes peeled, is our very first female player that will be playing, Shay Graham from Victoria. So she's the very first female Australian steeler. What I love about Shay, I got the pleasure to meet her a couple of months ago at the national champs, and Shay, she's a librarian by day, and when you speak to her off the court, she is softly spoken. She's just the most lovely person, but get her on the court and she sees red, and she is going to be a difference maker at this Games. She'll get a lot of court time and will be a really valuable player for our team. So yeah, keep your eyes out for Shay.
Very cool. Great preview, mate. And I guess, Kathryn or Sarah, you would know members of the Steelers, I imagine, whether I'm not sure, going back, whether you've been to a Games with Riley, Sarah, perhaps, or you, Kathryn. I mean, what do you guys know of the wheelchair rugby program? Perhaps starting, Sarah, with you.
Yeah, so, Riley and I started off going to Athens together, and then from there, a few games, and I know him quite well. He's just a great guy, and it's so cool that he's flag bearer with Danny. I just think they're 2 absolutely brilliant people, and they're the co-captains of the team together as well. They're just superb people, and I can't wait to see them in action. Riley's amazing. I think the Steelers team, again, just can't wait to see them. And like you say, with Shay in there, what combos are they going to run? How's that going to go against the rest of the world? It's so exciting to think about that and where it's going to go. They're a great group, and they're just so competitive against the rest of the world. So, yeah, going to be brilliant.
Won't it? And Kathryn, can the Steelers bring home the gold?
Oh, I hope so. I'm just remembering, I'm right there. I'm sitting in a bus in Rio now talking about the Steelers. And I was, although I was there with the triathlon team, I was helping out athletics because triathlon had finished. And I was trying to follow that incredibly nail-biting finish, which was triple extra time, I think it was, or something like that, and drawn scores. And I'm following on my device with appalling reception on this bus. Have they won? Have they won? And everyone on the bus, have they won? Who's won? And so that's my memory of the Steelers. Cool. It was right down to the wire. It was so exciting.
It's got to be one of the most remarkable finishes to a sporting event ever, just in terms of how close it was and how tense it was. And goodness me, let's hope we get another one of those cliffhangers over there in Tokyo.
No.
I know, just win by a lot.
We want to win by miles.
Get out in
we
front
don't want cliffhangers.
Fair enough. Hey,
look what happens
let's
to
talk
your hair when you have cliffhangers.
Yeah, we don't tend to do a lot of hair jokes on Rolling Conversations, Kathryn.
Well, they go grey. There's mine. I'm all grey up in there.
Fair enough.
That's wheelchair
grey
rollers.
Jokes. Grey jokes we do. We just don't do a lot of bald jokes. Yeah. Hey, okay, so that's wheelchair rugby. Now, our biggest participation sport within Wheelchair Sports New South Wales ACT is wheelchair basketball. And, of course, you're a triple Paralympian, Sarah, in wheelchair basketball. take us through the preview. How are we going to go in Tokyo?
Okay. I have a lot of things and a lot of notes, so I'll try and keep it brief, but feel free to ask me stuff. Right. In our gliders team, we have from Wheelchair Sports, Georgia, Jess and Hannah, who are all awesome and going to be great. Hannah went to equestrian in 2012 and then switched to wheelchair basketball and is just a superb player. She will be one to watch there. The team has then 6 ones, including Sarah Vinci, and she went to the 2012 games. So there's only Sarah Vinci, Amber Merritt, who were in the 2012 team, who have that Paralympic Games experience, and then Hannah, who has the experience from equestrian. So it does make the gliders team relatively inexperienced in terms of international competition and that level of pressure, and also that level of experience playing against other teams from around the world. And I guess a little bit unfortunately, COVID's added to that. We haven't had international competition to play, so as a plus or minus, the international teams haven't really seen each other over the past year and a half or more. So it could work either way, I think, for any of the teams. And I think that'll be what makes both the men's and women's wheelchair basketball really interesting, is that no one's really seen each other, and who's made what bounds in the past sort of year and a half, or mostly even 2 years or more since teams have really seen each other, and how they pit up against each other and play. So I think both men's and women's will just be great games, because on their day, most teams, anyone could take it. So I think that'll be fantastic. I think the exciting thing about Georgia Munro Cook is she's really been stepping up. So the 2018 Worlds, watching those live streams of those games, she really stepped up and played well. And the gliders played a sort of test game, a friendly game against Spain yesterday and won, which was fantastic for the girls to get that run and get a win out of it. And they referred to Georgia Munro Cook as the skipper. I've been looking to see an official announcement of the captain, so I haven't seen an official announcement, but I think it may mean she's captain, so fingers crossed, or hopefully, or she's definitely in the leadership group, so she'll be a great one to watch. And Jess Cronje, which most of our wheelchair sports family know, who went through athletics and so on and swimming, but has been in basketball for quite a few years now. She's going to be great out there. She's just quick and, yeah, really involved in the action. So I'm really intrigued to see the combos the coach ends up putting together and on the team, and who gets to step up. It's going to be amazing.
And Sarah, Jess is making her Paralympics debut, isn't she? Jess Cronje. This is her
yeah,
first
both
time.
Jess and Georgia Munro Cook are. So
okay.
they're both going to be amazing there. Well, basically, the whole team, apart from Amber, Sarah, and Hannah, are making their Paralympic debut. So it's a really sort of inexperienced team in that way. They've even called themselves the underdogs in the media I've seen. But I think they'll sort of relish that. They'll be able to take that sort of status and people not knowing who they are. So they'll be great. And
Sarah, are you going to sit on the fence, or are you going to give us a prediction for the gliders?
Look, I think it's a really tough one, because, like, fingers crossed, I hope they medal, go for gold. I think it'd be great, but it's really hard to tell, because internationally, in the women's group, it's a really tight comp, and the gliders have got a really tough draw. They've got the top teams in their draw, so it could work their way in terms of they get pushed and, you know, they could play well and step from it, but it'll be a tough road for them. But it'll be really good to see if they can step up. Yeah, and I think in the women's tournament, you kind of have Netherlands, GB, Germany, China, Canada, USA have been that top 6 for a while now. So it'd be good to see Australia step back in there, but also interesting to see where all those other teams are at. Be pretty cool.
Hey, Sarah, just to briefly interrupt, and we'll get on to the men's in a second, but I think we've got a hello there from Luke Bailey, who's, of course, making his Paralympic debut over in Tokyo. So it looks like Luke's watching from the village, which is very cool.
Yay. Good stuff.
Hey, Luke.
So send us a message, Luke, and let us know what it's like over there, mate. We'd love to hear it on the ground and what the atmosphere is like. But a big hello to you, mate, and we'll be talking about you shortly when we get onto Wheelchair Track and Road. So g'day to Luke.
Awesome sauce.
Back to you, Sarah.
Yeah, and so I guess the next bit is to go through the rollers team. So in there, our New South Wales athletes are John McPhail, Michael Allprince, Tristan Knowles, Bill Latham and Brett Stimness. And also a slight special mention to Jeremy Tyndall, who played with the Metro Blues this season. He's a 1.5 pointer. Those guys are all great. Johnny's been played well. Johnny, Michael, and Bill, I all coached as juniors, and obviously that's the reason for their success. No, they're all fantastic. And, so excited to see them all on there together and playing. And Tristan and Brett have been playing a long time and are very skilled. I think that's one of our sort of Australian advantages is our 4-pointers, big, quick, strong, smart, skilled players. So it'll be really interesting to see how we match up against the rest of the world again that we haven't really seen in a while, see where they're at. And we have Johnny in there with the 4 threes that they're also taking, Sean Norris, Tom O'Neill, and Kim Robbins. And again, they're all amazing threes. They're all quick, skilled threes. In Rio, they did some amazing combos with them, so I'm intrigued to see whether they play with those combos again up against the rest of the world. The rollers group is probably like a better group for them in terms of it's a mix of some teams would probably find a bit easier and some tougher teams, so they'll get that time to build up, play differently, play around with their combos, and also get really pushed and ready for the finals, hopefully against a few of those teams as well. So the men's has seen some shake-ups up and down, and all the teams across women's and men's have seen retirements, reclassifications, and COVID lead to some big changes. So I think the wheelchair basketball competition will be really exciting, and you'll get some really interesting players stepping up and doing really well.
Yeah, cool. What a great preview. Thanks, Sarah. It's a real privilege to hear you talk about, with your knowledge, of these two teams, to hear you talk through that. So thank you. Before we get on to the wheelchair track and road and a couple of others, I just wondered, Kathryn, whether you had any reflections on the wheelchair basketball, and likewise, David, if you want to jump in there just on the rollers and the gliders. Kathryn, you first.
The first reflection that comes to mind with the rollers and the gliders, I'm putting my coach hat on. And we always think that they'd be so much better off if they came to wheelchair racing or para-triathlon or something like that. That's what we always think. We always think, oh, look at all that talent going past. Not unfortunately, but it is what it is. The track competition, it runs for 10 days and you never get to see anything but track and athletics. So it's a long time since I've actually even watched a basketball match at a Paralympics. They've always been at a track.
Yeah, I think that's been a bit the same for basketball. We always start day one and finish on the last day. So you only pick up bits of other sports. And that was a nice thing I found about Rio being able to watch it, is to actually watch all my friends in all these other sports that I just kind of heard about and see them competing and doing brilliantly. So I'm very excited about that. With us being in the Tokyo time zone, it doesn't mean I have to go up at 3 a.m. to watch my favourite people. I can tune in at a normal time.
Hey, and DK, I was just thinking with regard to Jess Cronje and her making her Paralympic debut, Chris Riley and Jess, and they're just such an important part, as all of our members are, of our community. And you've spent a bit of time, whether it's at junior wheelies and different things. Must be a thrill for you as the head of sport to watch, to Jess making her Paralympic debut in Tokyo.
Oh, absolutely. When I heard the news of Jess getting selected, I was over the moon for her. I know how hard she's been training to have that opportunity. I know it's been a goal for her for a long time. As Sarah said, she's gone through a couple of other sports, but when she's focused on the wheelchair basketball, she's really gone for it. As you mentioned there, Mick, the amount of time that Jess volunteers to our organisation is incredible. She makes sure that she's at every junior wheelies camp, giving the juniors an idol or a role model to look up to. Just such a genuinely nice person, and somebody that everyone should get around, because fingers crossed she's going to be there for a long time in that team.
Yeah, well said. She's much loved member. And g'day to Chris as well, and everyone who's supporting all of our members in the wheelchair basketball fraternity. It's going to be awesome. Pat Curtin's just asking what's going on with your head there, DK. I'm not sure what he means by that, but because I think your hair looks fantastic. So let's take that comment well and truly off the screen. Thank you, Pat. let's get into the wheelchair track and road preview. Kathryn, I'm going to go to you, obviously, because this is such a huge part of your life, and your partner, Frederic, over there coaching as well. Now, what have you got there? What are you holding up? I can't quite make that out. What's that? Well, we might have you on mute there.
I've muted myself. It's a photo of the track team on the bus, and Luke Bailey is on the bus there. So when we just had that comment from Luke, this is 2 minutes ago, it says on my screen, and I can see like Louise and Maddie and Angie and Eliza and Luke and Reed and all those guys sitting there on the bus. He's sitting on a bus. Looks like they're coming home from training. The comment is just a team doing team things. The countdown has started, bring on race day. And that would certainly be very much the feeling of all the athletes in Tokyo right now. They'd be looking forward to racing.
Indeed.
And getting on with it.
Now, I've just got to ask a quick question, Kathryn, before we get into the preview. We're running overtime, but I don't really mind. I'd rather just keep yarning. Sarah, David, Kathryn, are we okay to keep going? Have you guys got any commitments?
Fine by me. I've told the children they're in charge of dinner tonight. So.
Excellent. Well, if we see any smoke coming out from behind you, we'll let you know. But other than that,
we just have to stop by the time the opening ceremony starts.
Yeah,
that's right. That's right. We've definitely got a hard finish there.
Put a cap on it. Yeah.
Kathryn, let's get stuck into it. With the wheelchair track and road team, you're very close to this. As I say, your partner Frederic over there is one of the coaches.
Yes.
I just can't wait for your preview. Who are we going to keep an eye out for over in Tokyo?
Well, there's 10 days of wheelchair racing competition, so there's plenty of opportunity if you're tied up one day to be able to watch them the next. There are 8 wheelchair races. Most of them come from Canberra or New South Wales. There's 2 ring-ins, which is Sam Mcintosh, who's from Victoria, but he's coached by Frederic, so he's sort of an honorary member of Wheelchair Sports New South Wales, and Robin Lambert from WA. So we have different classifications in wheelchair racing. We have athletes who have cerebral palsy, so that's Robin Lambert and New South Wales Wheelchair Sports' Reed McCracken. Reed would be one of the favourites in his events. He'll be doing the 100 and the 800 metres. The program is very limited for all athletes in athletics. You can imagine there's so many classifications now and so many events. They've really tried to scale down. So no 200-metre race for most of the wheelchair athletes. In fact, none of the wheelchair athletes. If you're a sprinter like Luke Bailey or Reed McCracken, you don't have a 200-metre option at the Paralympic Games. So Reed, in his class of T34, has the 100 metres, where he's the former world record holder and a world championship medalist and a Paralympic medalist too. And he will definitely be a big threat in that 100-metre event. He's also doing the 800 metres, and he's a very, very high-class, world-class racer. So he could do anything as well in that 800-metre race. Robin Lambert is just doing the 100 metres. She's the other T34. I mentioned the picture from Sam Mcintosh. He's a T52 competitor, so that's he'd be eligible to play wheelchair rugby is perhaps the best way to describe it. Generally, he's a quadriplegic racer, very experienced international racer. One of the interesting things in modern wheelchair sports is all the different disabilities are now in the same classes. So Sam is a spinal cord injured athlete, and he'll be racing people with muscular dystrophy or people who've had polio, all sorts of other disabilities. And it is very, very competitive. Sam's in the best shape of his life. He's been a finalist at Paralympics and World Championships, and he could do something really special. I think in the T52 100 metres, his first event will be the 400 metres, which kicks off on the first day of wheelchair racing competition and athletics competition, which is this Friday. Athletics kicks off. The 400 metres is the opportunity for him to practice and get a feel for the stadium, so that when he gets to his serious event, he's not quite so nervous. He's much more familiar with the environment. A number of the athletes are doing events for that reason, because they are earlier in their competition program. and they have the opportunity of going through the call room. So at a major event in wheelchair racing, you have to go into a call room, which is literally a room underneath the stadium, and you're in there for about an hour. And then you just roll out of this room into the main stadium, and you've got about a minute or two when you get introduced and you race. So there's a real skill in being able to manage moving from the outside warm-up track into the call room and then out into the main stadium. It's nothing like our Summer Down Under events where we have a little tent on the main straight and you're free to go pretty much as soon as you're finished. So Sam will be kicking off with the 400 metres this Friday in preparation. Also this Friday, we have Maddie De Rosario starting her program, and she's such a threat in all her events. She doesn't really have a warm-up event. She's either a world record holder or a world champion in all of her races. It's the 5,000 metre heats for Maddie on Friday, and she is, as I said, a threat in the 5,000 metres, the 800 metres, the 1,500 metres, and the marathon, which is on the last day of competition. Joining
Kathryn,
Maddie.
Sorry, Kathryn, I was just going to ask. So Maddie's a world champion, of course, and a superstar of world sport. I don't think she's got a Paralympic gold medal yet. Is she going to crack it this time?
I would think so. I know that her and Louise Sauvage, her coach, we've talked about the great Louise before, she coaches Maddie De Rosario. They've done everything. And I'm going to share a little story. My mother said I should tell this story because it's a fantastic story. Maddie had some problems with her racing chair very, very recently. It's in the last couple of weeks. And the only place it could be fixed was at the AIS in Canberra. But, of course, you're in Sydney and we're in Canberra, and you absolutely cannot cross the border. So Louise Sauvage managed to get special permission to drive to the border between Canberra and New South Wales with Maddie's racing chair. It was somehow handed across the border, taken to the AIS, fixed and returned. So COVID has put so many extra challenges in the way of these athletes. We cannot underestimate that. Lockdown. I know the athletes here in Canberra, as the list of contact sites grew in one little town to well over 300, most of the athletes in Canberra moved into the AIS, which is a closed environment, in the last few days before they left, because there was just too much risk that they might have been somewhere where there'd been COVID. So it's been an interesting preparation. Same for everyone in the world, though. We're no better or worse off than anyone else. In some cases, we've been better off for a long time in Australia than some other countries. Like Sarah said, these guys haven't raced. So we've had big competition in Switzerland again, but our Australian athletes were not able to get to that event, and they haven't had the opportunity to test themselves. But I have no doubt Louise Sauvage knows exactly what's required for success, and she'll have Maddie absolutely to perfection for all of her races.
Yeah, we just can't wait for that. I also would love to hear, Kathryn, about two of our members in particular, I think, in Christy Dawes and Angie Ballard. I think they would be okay with me calling them veterans. I think that's okay. But I think, if I'm not mistaken, this is Christy's 7th Paralympic Games, and I don't imagine Angie is that far behind. What can we look forward to for Christy and Angie at this Games, do you think?
Well, that's right. Christy is in her 7th Games. She was 16 when I was the head coach in 1996. That was also her coach and, at the time, future husband's first Paralympic Games, Andrew Dawes. And Andrew is at home looking after the children. Christy will be doing the marathon event. She's in fantastic shape, very experienced racer. And one thing for sure, in a marathon, anything can happen. It's like the GIO Ausday 10K. There can be flat tyres, there can be crashes. We know Christy will be there at the end, and she will be ready to take advantage of any opportunity. So though she may not be the most famous of athletes in the event, not the favourite, she will definitely be there to take advantage of any opportunity. And she is a Paralympic medalist from London. She won her first Paralympic medal in London. So there's a great message too about persistence there. So in 1996, she went to her first games as a 16-year-old, but she didn't win her medal until 2012. It doesn't happen straight off for most athletes. You have to work very hard. There are plenty of athletes who've not been selected for this games or not been selected in the past who have gone on to really great success in the future. So the message that I saw Rooster there before was saying, hello, young athletes like him and those we see at the Summer Down Under series, the future is all ahead of you, but you have to have great persistence. And that's absolutely what Christy has. Angie Ballard has a very long and distinguished career. I think it's her 6th games, so she's not very far behind Christy. 2000, I think, was her first Paralympic Games when she was also a teenager. She's won so many medals. She's set so many world records. She hasn't won a Paralympic gold medal either. And I know that her coach now is Periac, and she was previously with Louise, that she's capable of winning a medal. We don't know what shape. So her big opposition include the Chinese athletes. Goodness only knows what the Chinese athletes have been doing and whether they'll even turn up. The Chinese turned up in great shape for the Olympics, but we just don't know. And I know Angie is in really good shape. And yeah, both those two athletes are coming perhaps to the twilight of their careers, but as one great former Australian wheelchair racer, Mike Gletch, once told me, old age and treachery will beat youth and beauty anytime. So they'll be very competitive. Yep.
Kathryn, it just occurred to me when we were talking about Christy Dawes that I wanted to ask Sarah. Something tells me, because she's a hell of a character, that going on tour with Christy Dawes might be an experience. Sarah, have you spent any time with Christy in the Paralympic Village?
I know all the track athletes quite well, but as we were saying before, both of our groups basically compete the whole way through, so we don't really get to interact a heap. It's more just that when we come home and go to functions and things like that, we get to hang out and that sort of thing. So I know Christy, Louise, Maddie, and Angie really well, and all the guys as well. They're great people. Yeah, it'd be amazing to see them in action in Tokyo. I even trained with Louise with the great Gary Foley for a bit there, and we did some great stuff together. It was really interesting, the different abilities we had and the skills we worked on together to improve each other when we realised some of us were better at this and some of us were better at that, and how we might improve that together for each other. So, yeah, it's quite amazing when we do get that time to compare how we might push or other things we might do. But yeah, they're all great personalities, and I think that's the fun side of having this kind of broadcast access as well, is hopefully we'll get to see it in interviews, a bit like we did with Maddie and Rio and that kind of stuff. We'll hopefully get to interviews with them and see their personality shine.
We're certainly blessed up in the wheelchair sports environment with some wonderful characters, and this goes back a long way too. People like Richard Korjiks, and we were speaking about Richard earlier, and Chris Sparks, and our great pioneers. We've got raconteurs and storytellers, and a wonderful array of people in our athletic background. DK, I'm going to go back to Kathryn to ask about Luke Bailey, but I also wanted to ask you about Luke, because again, we spoke about the junior wheelies earlier. I have seen the impact that Luke has and the generosity of spirit that Luke has when he's rolling around our junior wheelies, and they absolutely love him. You've seen that firsthand.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think a big part of it is that Luke came through the junior wheelie. So he started off, I don't know what age he was at, Mrs. T, if you're listening in, maybe you can throw that in. But I know he absolutely came in as one of those little rat bag kids who was a troublemaker. But he's grown up over the years and become so mature, and his passion to just give back and to guide everyone through. I think, I always talk about how fantastic our junior wheelies program is because of that people come through and then they learn from a role model, that, one of our a bunch of our great athletes to come and mentor at those junior camps. And then straight after, when they hit 18, they want to start giving back and to offer that same opportunity for kids. So, yeah, Luke's amazing. He comes down as a team leader year in, year out, plays all of the sports, teaches the kids how to do some wheelchair racing. It's incredible. And I'm very much looking forward to seeing Luke and Sam Carter in the T54 100, who's the fastest racer in the world over 100 meters. Hopefully it's out of one of those two, but Kathryn will probably have a bit more information on the competitors in that race.
Well, let's go back to Kathryn. Yeah, and as we do, Kathryn, we just got a joke there from Deb, a bit of a joke. So really on fire there, Deb at home. Thanks for that. You've been maybe in lockdown for a little bit too long, but there we go. Kathryn, your preview of
Yes, well, the T5400, as you say, David, it's going to be one of the great highlights of the Games. And Australia has two athletes that will be absolutely in contention for medals, and that is Luke Bailey, who's at his first Paralympic Games, and Sam Carter, who's been to several Games before. Both incredibly fast athletes. Luke is making enormous strides, as all young athletes do, and Sam, who's more in the middle of his career, is creeping forward as well. And 1-2 is not impossible in that event. They'll be up against the Chinese athletes, have dominated in the sprinting, as well as the Finnish athlete. And so, but again, we have two great competitors. They'll also both be competing in the 400 metres. Both of them are potential finalists in the 400 metres, and it'll be an unusual Games. Who knows, they could even medal in the 400 metres. Sam Carter was 4th at the World Championships in the 400. So their events are on, they kick off their competition on Sunday, the 29th, and as I explained, they're doing the 400 before they do the 100, and so they'll have the opportunity to settle in and get used to the track, get used to the environment. The 100-metre finals are on Wednesday, the 1st of September. So we will see those guys there. Also in the 100, it'll be a big day for us. We will have Angie Ballard in the T5300 final, hopefully, or surely. And Eliza O'Connell, who's another athlete we haven't spoken about, she will have the 100-metre final for the T54s there. So that day, we may win multiple medals, which would be really exciting. And as I said, I mentioned Eliza. Eliza, this is her first Games since 2004. And she's just been diddling around, not doing very much between 2004 and now. She just had and raised 3 children. So we think she should really lift her game and do a bit more. But no, seriously, Eliza competed in 2004. She's a medalist from the Paralympic Games. And also from the Olympic Games. Up until 2000, there was a wheelchair race at the Olympic Games. There was an 800 metres for the women, a 1,500 metres for men, and Louise was the winner in 2000 in Sydney. And probably anyone who was there would definitely remember that Olympic Games medal. But Eliza also raced at the Olympic Games. In 2000, I think, could be wrong, but she won a Paralympic medal in 2004, Commonwealth Games medals in 2002, and she's come back. Here we are in 2021, and she's come back to compete again. So you're never too old to come back.
Never too old, that's right. I think the story goes, Kathryn, that her kids were watching the Rio Paralympics with her and said, didn't you used to do that, and almost dared her back into having a go.
That's right. And I don't know if you saw, she was in the Women's Weekly recently. And now with the fantastic opportunity we have ahead of us for 2032 with the Queensland Olympic and Paralympic Games coming home, we've got a great opportunity for all the young athletes now to aim for 2032. But apparently Eliza's children have said to her, how about we both compete? And her children don't have a disability and they'll compete in the Olympic Games, and mummy, you can hang on for another however many long number that is and compete as well. And Eliza said yes, because that's what Eliza usually does, is say yes.
Indeed. Hey, we say good day to Carolyn and the Emineys from Mudgee watching along there. And thanks, Carolyn, and everyone that's been watching our edition of Rolling Conversations tonight. We've also, I think, got another wheelchair sports joke there from Richard Corjukes, who asks, who is the spokesperson? So it's really first-class material there, Richard. And please, everybody, keep the wheelchair sports jokes coming because they are excellent. Kathryn, finally, any other tips?
They're really good.
Oh, they're really good. Very nice, Sarah. Thank you. Yeah, that's good. You've been hanging on to that one, haven't you?
Just waiting for the moment.
Yeah, well, you timed it beautifully. Kathryn, anyone else?
Yeah, to wrap up the athletics, so you'll have morning and evening sessions that are, Tokyo's an hour behind the Sydney, so you can watch during work. It's a really good idea. You can set up your laptop with your work stuff, and underneath you have your iPad and watch the athletics coverage during the day, and then at night you can come home and have a beverage and sit and watch the sport.
My top tip is you get 7plus open on another little window on your app and just have that going on mute in your background, and you can watch at the same time.
You pretend you're at work, yes.
I'm really paying attention to you on the screen, and most of fact your eyes are following the games happening here.
Yeah,
we
Sarah,
haven't talked about
giving David ideas, please. That'd be great. Yeah.
I've
blocked out time in my calendar already, so no meetings can be done during a bunch of our team games.
Excellent.
We haven't talked about triathlon, Mick, because
Indeed.
New South Wales wheelchair sport, there are 3 wheelchair athletes competing in triathlon. So this will be the second games for paratriathlon, and Nick Beveridge was a competitor in the first ever PTWC, paratriathlon wheelchair race in Rio. It's very difficult to make the field. They only have 10 competitors in an event. And so you have to go through a long qualifying process to actually even qualify. So Nick is competing again for his second Paralympic Games experience. And then you have 2, again, we talked about Luke and Sam in the 100. In the women's wheelchair paratriathlon, you've got the current world champion, Lauren Parker from Newcastle, who will be competing, and then Emily Tapp, who has also won 2 world championships, will be competing. And it's research. I can't resist Rooster's comment there, yeah. So, yes, there'll be 3 athletes competing in the triathlon. And the triathlon is this weekend. They start about 6:30 a.m. The wheelchair athletes are competing on Sunday morning. So from about 7:30 a.m, I think there'd be a reasonable chance we'd be able to get live footage of that. So look for Lauren Parker and Emily Tapp in the women's event and Nick Beveridge in the men's event. Swim, bike, run for wheelchair athletes in paratriathlon. If you haven't seen it before, they use a hand cycle, recumbent hand cycle in the cycling part, and in the run they're in a racing wheelchair, just like the wheelchair races. And the coaches, Andrew Dawes coaches Lauren Parker in the run, and Emily Tapps with Frederick Periac, and they are well known, and Nick is with Louise Savage, so they're all well known in the whole world.
Yeah, very cool. I can't wait for the paratriathlon, to be honest. And we got Craig Jarvis, of course, watching along as well, giving Richard Corjukes a big rap there.
Java has one of these jackets, I'm pretty sure. He's got a 1988 jacket. I don't know if you still fit into it, Craig.
Wow.
Sorry, mate. Sorry.
There you go, Craig. Craig, send us a message and let us know how you are fitting into your 1988 jacket. On that topic, I think we received a message from Richard Corjukes earlier saying that he also still has his 1988 jacket. So I don't know what all the fuss is about. I actually think it's quite a smart jacket, to be honest. But
I like
it. Yeah, I like it too. Kathryn, anything else from you? We're going to whip around in a second and just sort of, I'm going to ask each of you what, I guess if you had to pick one thing, what are you most looking forward to? And that's going to be a terribly difficult exercise for everyone, I'm sure. But anything else from a preview point of view, Kathryn, before we start to wrap up?
So from a preview point of view, we've talked about some of the sports, but there are lots and lots of other sports, and there are lots of sports that we don't have representatives in. And you would have young athletes who are in your junior program now who may be para taekwondo, or maybe para badminton, or maybe any one of any other sports, and So have a look at everything, even though there's not an Australian. If it's on the screen, you get the opportunity, have a look, because maybe that's going to be the sport that you fall in love with, and that can be the sport that you might be doing in Paris or Los Angeles, or even in home games in Brisbane. Home games, we've mentioned, you know, the incredible memories we have from 2000 for all of us. That is another special opportunity to really be part of an event that you will never forget. Sorry.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes,
so,
he's
you
got
know,
us again
set
there,
your sights
Craig.
on Brisbane.
I agree.
And find the
now we
event
haven't
you
spoken-
love. Find your passion.
Agreed, Kathryn. Well said. We haven't spoken about wheelchair tennis. David, can you give us a sense, because we've got a wonderful history, and I mean Australia, not just Wheelchair Sports New South Wales ACT, but with David Hall and others. But, you know, Dylan Alcott's really put wheelchair tennis on the map for many Australians that might not have seen Paralympic sport before. Love to hear your thoughts on what we can expect for wheelchair tennis in Tokyo.
Yeah, you're spot on. It has been a really rich history. Up until last year, though, we, other than Hawley's gold medal, I think it was in the 2000 games, we haven't won a gold medal until Dylan won the singles quad and the doubles quad with his partner Heath Davidson. So this year we've got 4 competitors. So we've got Dylan and Heath competing in both the singles and the doubles again in the quad division, and fingers crossed they bring home the gold. If Dylan does, he's on the verge of getting a golden slam as well, which will be an incredible achievement. So, yeah, fingers crossed for them. As I said, they won the gold last year in both of those categories. So they'll be, you know, fingers crossed that they'll be winning that one. And in the open division, we actually have one of our members, Ben Weeks, will be going to his 5th Paralympic Games, which is incredible for a guy who's 36 years old to have been competing for 21 years. Incredible achievement. I was actually reading a story about how Ben got involved. He went to the 2000 Paralympic Games, watched Hawley, fell in love with it, thought, I'm going to give this a crack. And then he was selected in 2004, less than 4 years after getting involved in the sport for the first time. So, yeah, we got Ben Weeks.
I'll add in there that both Dylan and Ben started off in basketball. So obviously it's a good training ground getting them up.
Nice. Yeah. I see where this is going. Yeah, good.
Very true. And
well
Dylan
played,
actually won 2 medals in wheelchair basketball as well.
Indeed. Very successful.
Yeah, very, very good. So yeah, we got Ben in the open singles, and Maddie Dunn, who'll be making his Paralympic debut. He's competed at a number of our events over the years. Marty, I believe, is from Victoria, so he comes up to the New South Wales competitions all the time. They'll both be in the singles, and then they'll pair up together for the doubles. And fingers crossed, Ben hasn't won a medal yet at a Paralympic game, so hopefully this is the one that he comes home with.
Yeah, well done, DK. Thank you. And yeah, as I say, there's a real move on with wheelchair tennis, isn't there? And great credit to Dylan and others for putting wheelchair tennis on the map for many Australians, as I say, who may not have seen Paralympic sport before. And that is the great benefit of having, an ambassador like him that raises the profile of the sport. So that's really exciting to watch, isn't it? We've got a message there from Tracy Carruthers saying she remembers playing against Ben in basketball. And so there you go. And in fact, Ben Weeks is the only person on Rolling Conversations to have played the piano so far as well. So he plays a beautiful piano and did a wonderful piece to finish his interview. So yeah, amazing skills, wasn't it? So there you go. A multi-talented person. Anything from you, Kathryn, or Sarah, maybe starting with you, Kathryn, on wheelchair tennis. Any insights you can give us?
I remember when wheelchair tennis came into the Paralympics, and it was David Hall and Mick O'Connell were the players in those days, and Danny De Toro, who's now playing table tennis, was initially a tennis player. So again, that can really highlight that we've talked about a number of athletes who've transferred sports. I think you mentioned someone in the basketball team who was equestrian in their basketball. It is possible in Paralympic sport to play one sport and then transfer to another sport. But yeah, Dylan winning that doubles and the individual in Rio was also incredibly exciting. In a village, there are all these big TV screens up on the wall all throughout the village, and you sort of walk, to pick up the paperwork or pick up something, or beg someone to give you another room key because you've lost your room key again, and you'll see suddenly there it is. There's Dylan Alcott playing tennis, and everybody just freezes and stands there and watches it, and it's such a great atmosphere to share it. And I think that's going to be very much what they're going to have a lot more of in Tokyo, because the athletes can't go anywhere other than their own competition and the little confines of the Australian team. And I know that Paralympics Australia have gone to great lengths to make it really, really comfortable. There's lots of places to be able to see and watch and cheer everybody and have a real camaraderie together. And that's what's so wonderful, is you have basketballers and athletics and swimming and tennis and everybody there all cheering for wheelchair rugby or whatever it might be. And it's a magic and exciting and really uplifting experience for anyone. And I encourage any young athlete. It is incredibly hard to make the Paralympics. It takes a lot of work, a lot of time, and a lot of choices about what you want to do. And sometimes they're incredibly hard choices when your friends are going out and you can't because you're focused on your sport. But then when you get to the Paralympic Games, they're like nothing else that you will ever experience in your life. And every single time that you chose not to go out with your mates, or that you chose to do that extra session you had to do that your coach asked you to do, or you didn't eat the chocolate that you were supposed to eat, it is more than worth it. And I'm sure, Sarah, you'd agree with that from the athletes that you've seen.
Yeah, absolutely. And on the two of the things you sort of finished on there, one, in the village, what was really great each village is you have a TV in the room and TV around the place, and you can switch between the live streams from the venues. And what's really lovely about what we have through Seven, and obviously we haven't seen it in action yet, but we saw it with the Olympics, is that you had the live stream access from each of the sports, so that even if they weren't showing it on free-to-air TV, we could go to the app and find our sport and watch that live stream, which is fantastic. And I think that's something we'll really love to get out of this. If you have any issues finding it, anyone in our community, get in contact and we'll help explain to you how to find those live streams, because it's brilliant. And so if you want to watch all 73 of the basketball games over the whole games, you can go to that and watch them as they happen. And because Seven probably won't show all of them, they'll show other sports in between or something. But also then if you know one of the Aussies is competing on the track at this time, you can go and find it. If you know that Dylan's going to be playing one of his round games, you can go and find it if I don't have any showing it, or Ben's playing one of his round games. So that's a really brilliant thing about these games, and I think we're going to find it really exciting, particularly all of us in lockdown, that we can go and find the sports we want. And yeah, the second thing you said, I really agree that it's a really tough slog. I think sometimes it gets thrown around a bit to any kid with a disability, oh, you can go and be a Paralympian. It's actually a really, really tough slog. And like you say, it takes a lot of tough choices to make that decision. You have to give up going to certain things to make sure you get the training sessions, to make sure that the coaches see you, or you make that time or that qualifier, or you're ready in the right space of time to make a team. But getting to a games, it's worth it. It's an amazing experience. So give it a shot.
It's opening night, Sarah. Beautifully said. We're going to have to wrap up because I've got some home delivery coming. We're actually having Japanese tonight.
Can you deliver to me?
Makes sense, right? So, and then we're going to polish that off, settle in on the couch, and watch this opening ceremony. Hopefully, with Danny and Riley carrying the flag. It's going to be a very special night. I'm going to ask for your golden moment.
Can I do one quick plug? Sorry.
Please, Sarah.
Just because I didn't get to say the game times, and I won't go through all of them, but the women play 6 o'clock tomorrow, their first game, and the men play Thursday, 3:45, their first game. And you can find all their other games online. My athlete page has it. I'm sure Wheelchair Sports put something. Basketball Australia will put stuff off. But, yeah, just tune in for their first games and see how it goes.
Certainly will. I'm going to ask one more question of everyone before my sushi arrives, basically. I'm going to start with you, DK. Your golden moment of the next 2 weeks. Give us a prediction so we can all tune in.
All right. Well, just quickly, I want to just carry on Sarah's point that I didn't mention when wheelchair rugby is. The first game's tomorrow, 3 p.m. So tune in for that one. And if there's anyone in our community that is interested when the games are and you can't find them or you're struggling to access it, please email me or any of the sports team. We're happy to help and we'll guide you on when to watch and how to watch. Golden moment, God, on the spot because I love every single one of our members that's going to be there. So I'm going to get splinters and keep sitting on the fence. But probably the thing that I'm most excited about is getting to see all of these athletes that now I get to know personally, see them on TV, achieving their dreams and just doing their best. Because even if they don't get a gold medal or even if they don't place, I know that they've done everything that they could possibly do to do the best for themselves and for the country. So, yeah, it's really exciting.
Yeah, well said, DK. And I must say, you know, you and I have worked together for a couple of years now, and I've seen the amount of effort that you and our sports team put into our members and putting on more than 1,100 individual sporting events a year to make these sort of opportunities possible. That is an incredible amount of output for a little team of 4. So to our current sports team and our former sports team, you know, Pat Curtin, Joe Shoebridge, Todd, and all the people that have come before that have contributed to the pathways that have made this Paralympics possible. We say thank you. And to you, DK, for all of your hard work that has made it possible for some of these athletes to represent Australia. Thank you, mate, for all the hard work.
Thank you.
Sarah, putting you on the spot, and then we're going to finish with Kathryn. Golden moment, and something tells me it might be in wheelchair basketball, but let's have it. Let's wait and see.
Look, it's really hard because I am generally just a sports lover. So every single thing that happens, I'll be watching all of them as much as I can and soaking it in. I think there's gonna be those kind of moments you can't predict, which will be, you know, between random athletes doing amazing things or a really human story in there, and I can't wait to see that happen and see the rest of the world see that real community behind the Paralympics. Probably that's the main thing. But like David said, every single Aussie athlete hitting the court and our wheelchair sports athletes, particularly, that we know them and get to see them on the big screen and get to see them just do the best they can, no matter what it is, will be absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, it's awesome. Thank you, Sarah, for being a part of tonight. You're on the board, of course, at Wheelchair Sports, and you're also a huge driver, and we're really a pioneer alongside others like Lisa around the engagement of girls and women in wheelchair sport. And, you know, we're now getting, wings to that work that you've been doing year in, year out. So thanks for everything that you do for Wheelchair Sports and also for your excellent previews tonight. I know that a lot of people have got a lot of value out of what you've brought tonight. So thanks for being a part of it.
Oh, thank you.
And Kathryn, again, you know, I mean,
yeah.
You win best dressed tonight. I don't want to have a go at the other two, but really, outstanding performance.
Yes. Well, I was actually only very young, of course, unlike Craig, who was a little tiny bit older and was measured. I was much younger, and I've grown into this, so I now fit into my jacket. You asked about some of...
As an aside, you've had a couple of cracks at Craig tonight. It's come out a bit worse for wear from tonight,
That's all right.
to be honest.
I'm trying to catch up for many years' worth. Many years worth. I was on the brunt of that. But you were talking about some of the highlights. We haven't mentioned the sport of boccia, which is for the most severely disabled wheelchair users. And we've got a team of 3 Australians competing in that. And Dan Michelle certainly has a great opportunity to potentially pick up a medal there. But the things that will be the real golden moments for me. So this Sunday will be the triathlon, as I mentioned, 750 metre swim, 20-kilometre bike, 10K on the road. And we've got 3 fantastic wheelchair athletes there in Lauren Parker, Emily Tapp and Nick Beveridge. That's a real highlight. Wednesday, the 1st, is the 100-metre final days, where we have Luke and Sam, Carter and Angie and Eliza all racing in 100-metre finals. So that will be fast and furious. And then Richard Corjukes did put up Christy Dawes in the marathon as his pick. The marathon is on the morning of the 5th of September. And not only will Christy be in that race, we have Eliza and we have Maddie. And any one of those athletes, if not all three. Imagine that, 1, 2, 3 in the marathon. That would be a bit surprising, but nothing is impossible. Nothing.
Yeah. Indeed. Hey, Kathryn, there's so few people who know as much about Paralympic sport and the breadth of Paralympic sport as you do. 7 Paralympics in different guises, and you've been such an important part of our community for so many years. You do a wonderful job of commentary at the Canberra track meet and, of course, this year at the GIO Oz Day 10K. So you're a much-loved member of our community and a huge contributor to wheelchair sports. It's been a privilege to hear from you tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Mick. Hopefully my mother's listening and that'll make her night.
There you go. Thank you, everybody, for joining in our Paralympics preview. We will be back again next Tuesday to keep this conversation going. But my Uber Eats has just arrived. It's Paralympic opening ceremony night. What an exciting moment. So a couple of hours to get them some food into you, hit the couch and enjoy. This has been our Paralympics preview, rolling conversation. Thanks, everyone, for being a part of what's been a really special conversation, and good night.
Thank you, Mick. Good night, everyone. Enjoy the games. Let the games begin.
Indeed.